Hello everybody, welcome back to our Spring Boot series. Today I would like to talk about ComponentScan. When we define a Spring Boot application, by default, all the classes that contains beans, which are the class that contains the annotation service or REST controller, and we can see them here. For instance, in our REST, we have our user REST controller like this, and we have this annotation, and these are classes that we want Spring Boot to scan at the start of the application. And the default algorithm for Spring Boot is to check where our main class exists. In our case, it is in this package here, backend server, and then it goes downward this package trying to find other beans, meaning that if you try to add a class in a different package that it's not under the backend server, it will not be found. Let's see an example. Imagine that we are creating a new REST controller, and I created one here, call it custom messages, meaning that we can provide a key and we'll reply with a message. For now, it's just most of it is just hard-coded, but later we'll see how we can connect this to a database, maybe custom message to a web page and so on. But for now, let's just focus on the component scan. So we have this, and I will uncomment this REST controller, which is under the REST, so it shouldn't be a problem. But I'm injecting here a test messages, which should be a service. And I put the text message, if you see here on the tree, at the side of the backend server. So it will not be found. And that's why after I just save this, and since I have the dev tools activated, if you don't remember, if you add this to your POM, which is somewhere here, let's see, dev tools, it means that when you are executing a Spring Boot application, if you change a class, it'll automatically recompile and it will execute your application. You don't have to stop and start. Of course, this is a mechanism that it's very connected to the IDE that you are using. Okay, that's why I didn't have to stop and start again. So as I was saying, I have this in the package others, which is side-by-side backend server, and I create this component, but it could be a service. I will change to service because it is somehow a kind of a business, but it works also with a component because service inherits somehow from the component. It's the same thing, but I will just change here, but it will not affect the error. And if you see the error here, it's a parameter 0 of constructor in our custom messages REST, which is this one, is trying to inject auto-wire the test message, but he can't because he cannot find it. That's what he's saying here. So what can we do? One way to do it is just to go to the backend. That's the first thing that we think is just, okay, so there is an annotation called ComponentScan, and usually ComponentScan belongs also to this annotation. If you click on this annotation, you can see that this annotation is a kind of a container for a lot of other annotations. It's just a way to simplify our configuration. But we can also override and say, okay, no, I want to control the component scan. So I'll put component scan here and say, okay, the base package now are the others. I want you to include the others. The problem is when we do this, when we include the others like this, I just save to check what happens. Okay. The others, there is no error here. But let's see what happens when we try to call the REST service. So I will put here the browser, or imagine even users, which is a REST that we have, it cannot find it. And even the API for our message, which is API messages and hello, it can't find also. And I can return to it so you can check what I'm doing. This is users, something that we created in the previous videos. And the custom message is a REST control, and you can see that we have API messages and the key, and we are trying to call this bean, this service that we created for the test message. That given a key, just return a message. For now, it's manually encoded, but later we'll put some messaging mechanism here. So what happened here was that when I defined the package here, I told to Spring Boot, now I'm controlling your scanning process. So I have to include all the package that I need to be scanned. there is no kind of a mixed way to do these things. So one thing that we can do is just to add another one like com, and we include backend server, and now it should work because we are including this package here and at the same time this one. So let's wait for this to start, and then when we try to execute now our hello, we can see the message hello hello from text messages. And if we try to do our users like this, we can see it's working for both. But now it's in our responsibility to handle both at the same time. This is one possible solution. I don't like it because I have to control everything, and maybe during the development when there are teams with multiple people, we don't know what will be their behavior, where they will put all the classes, and there is no kind of a real control, because we don't understand why we had to add this package to the ComponentScan. There is no documentation. Maybe you can put some Java doc here and explain why, but it's not clear. So there is a different way, and I always like for the things to be in harmony, let's say. And let's say I want to make sure that the default mechanism still works, but I want to add this specific external package here somehow. I want to the others to exist. Imagine this the others is an external integration. We are integrating, we are creating beans explicitly to connect to an external system that was originally not in our application, and we want to give a specific name. It's message that we are plugging in, but it's not us that we are controlling the message. So, but we want to integrate in our application. So somehow there is a kind of organization in this. I have my application, but I have to integrate this message because there is a new project, but I don't want to change the configuration of my project. I just would like to add this message without messing with the things that I already developed. And one way to do it, again, is we can also add a new configuration, something that I introduced in the past. So imagine that I have this extra beans configure. Maybe I would change the name and say something external messages model config. So it's a configuration for our external message, meaning that if there are multiple beans and we want to put them in a specific package, and we want to make sure that there is a central place, say, okay, it's here, the configuration for this external model. So our architecture somehow it's still in harmony because I don't have to change nothing under the backend server, but I'm just telling to the backend server and Spring Boot, say, okay, I have an external set of beans that I'm including this project, but I don't want to on the same package. There are in other packages, but I want for you to consider also these beans. And the way to do it, as you know, it's just we have this configuration. So Spring Boot can scan this class and understand it's about configuration. And now we can add this. We can put here ComponentScan base packages. And this ComponentScan, it's not the same as putting like here. It's different because this is about the starting of the application, but here we are just extending the configuration and say, okay, Spring Boot, please add this as a base package. That's what we do here. So, and we are, I'm putting here these package others as a component belonging to the ComponentScan. Also, I'm not replacing the ComponentScan. I'm just adding this configuration, and please Spring Boot accept this additional package for you to scan. So here I will just remove from here, or it's just be comment for further analysis if you need. But now we have this web config. So when the application now starts at the backend, it will start from here. There is this package here called configurations. We have several configurations here. We have one specific for this external message models config. This name, it's not important. We are not overriding internal behavior. We're just overriding the way the ComponentScan is done. And we are adding this one. So now our bin, it's here, it's a service. We have the REST for custom message that we added. I can even move this REST controller to here, meaning that imagine that, and maybe it's a good idea for you to see what happens. So let's say Spring, and let's put something like messages. Maybe we can do something like this, services. So it makes more real. Okay, so we have our messages services and our REST here. rather than be here, we can just put it on the same place, like messages, not on the backend, because it's a different model. So let's make it more real. Messages and the rest. Okay, move. So this is IntelliJ working. So we have here now our custom message, our, let's say, message model. It contains a REST controller and the service. It's like it's a different application, but glued to our application here. And I'm seeing an error, but I don't think there is an error here. Something. Okay, let's see. I don't see any errors here. And now the only thing that it's inside our original application, it is this external message model config, which targets this package here and again. So you can see the message is side by side with the backend. And now this backend start from here on the backend and will scan all these components. But when it reach this config here, this configuration, it also adds this ComponentScan package, which is this one. And then it goes through here and it can find the REST custom message here. Okay, maybe I will change this name also. Custom messages, or maybe just message, why not? Messages, message REST controller, like this. And here, so we make this more professional, rather than text message, let's call it service, or message service, messages service, like this. Okay, too many refactors. I hope it's not breaking, nothing in special. I don't understand this red, but maybe it's something from IntelliJ. I don't see any specific error here. Okay, the application is running. I don't see any errors below. Let's see if it's still working or not. So let's go here. Let's run this. Okay, still the users. Maybe we can try something like 4, users 4. Okay, it's working. And now our API for messages, API messages, hello. Okay, it's not working. That's API message hello. Maybe that was the problem. It's the package service, message service, REST service. Maybe that was the issue that I wasn't understanding. Learning, Spring. Okay, my fault. It's not that all those refactors. So it's Spring, and we have learning Spring, and now we have these model messages here. Now it's correct. That's the reason. So let's refresh this. Okay, and it's working. So we have our messages now and again. So let's do a regression. Users, and let's say 5, and it's working. So both our REST controllers are being found in different places. And remember that the scan package is comment. So the Spring Boot, it's only scanning starting here, but with the help again of this config here, external message model, where we include this an additional package for the scanning. It goes with this. I think this is the most elegant way to add packages rather than try to redefine them here. Okay, this is how component scans work. I really like to always introduce this topic because I did this mistake a lot of times, and when I started with Spring, I didn't read documentation. I just tried to start as fast as possible, and then there was this error that I couldn't understand why my bin was not being found. And then after that, every time I teach about Spring Boot, I always make sure that people understand all the intricacies about this scanning package. And because I had this component scan and then other bins were not being found, then I understood how this works internally. And now I think it's clear. So remember, by default, it always starts where your main class exists, meaning on this package, and it goes downward. If you try to override here, you should add all the packages that you think are necessary to be scanned, where all your bins exist. Or I think the most elegant way, or in a more, let's say, creating some harmony in your architecture, is just to don't use the component scan, just add a config and explicitly say where is the package, because the name of this class it will serve as a kind of auto documentation, because it already says, okay, I'm doing some configuration and adding this component scan for the external message models config. So somehow, even if it's only definition, it's auto documenting your application. And then we have this message, which is this one here, and we can create a kind of a parallel development. So, but you understand this, when we need this, maybe you are adding external thing, because if it belongs to your application, it should be under your package here. But if you need side by side, maybe you are creating things to integrate with other components, other applications, and you need bins. And for me, that's the that's the way that you should go when you need, of course, that integration. So I hope this lesson was useful for you. I hope to see you in my next videos. So see you.